battle in regard to in-person learning rages on across the country. Of course, we have seen a surge in coronavirus cases thanks to the Omicron variant. Hospitals have been overwhelmed, especially in states where a lot of people have refused to get vaccinated or refused to get boosted. Now, Oklahoma happens to be one of those states. And so in lieu of educators, people who actually go to school, have expertise, have the necessary training to be teachers, Oklahoma has decided to rely on other professionals to fill those roles. And those professionals include cops, armed cops. So let's take a look at this post by the Moore Police Department in Oklahoma. Moore PD is a proud community partner of Moore Public Schools. This week, several on-duty officers are serving in the classroom as schools continue to face teacher and staff shortages. Today, officers Stromsky and Lewis covered 6th grade classes at Apple Creek Elementary. 6th grade is not an elementary, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, it wasn't in, I don't think it is.
I mean, there's like, middle school. Yeah, no, that's definitely elementary for.
Okay.
Well, in Connecticut anyway.
Okay, it's middle school in California. But anyway, let's just move on, it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, so, it's more important.
Yeah, so you see the photo of the cops, and like, who knows? Look, let's be fair. Maybe the cops, these are cops who maybe made a career change from being educators to then later being cops. Maybe they have the credentials necessary to be teachers, because guess what, guys? Teaching is a profession that you would need credentials for. That's why there are education programs, and that's why teachers are expected to meet certain standards, right? Except no, none of those qualifications are implemented or mandatory or expected under this weird system where you use cops in lieu of qualified teachers. By the way, of course, no masks, full uniform, armed with guns, great. I would really love my 6th grader to be part of that class.
They took promotional photos for it and they didn't even wear masks. And some of the kids in the photos are wearing masks. You're in this position because so many people have COVID. I'll step in and breathe all over the kids. What is it with cops not participating in this? Like, I mean, when I say this, I mean any societal solution to the pandemic.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'm sure many are good or whatever, but none of those cops was wearing a mask.
And this is Oklahoma, where I would venture to say there's a more laxed attitude during this pandemic. And the Oklahoma governor, Kevin Stitt, is the one who issued this executive order to find people, anyone basically, to fill the role of teachers during these shortages. So this is an executive order. Here's what he said in an official statement. I've said from the beginning that our students deserve an in-person education and our schools need to stay open. I appreciate schools and teachers that are doing everything they can to provide in-person learning for their students, as well as the business community for stepping up. So
CEOs are being substitute teachers, I guess.
No, not CEOs. Yeah. CEOs are using some of their employees to also fill these roles. But like, okay, so for me, this is the important point to the story. It makes it so clear that the obsession with in-person learning for some, not all, I understand that in-person learning is important, and I'm not minimizing that. But for me, my consideration is in regard to what serves the best interests of the students. Like, I care about that. So I understand the concerns about not receiving in-person learning. But that is not what most people, especially those involved in this story, are concerned about. What they're really concerned about is, yo, parents, they gotta go back to work, okay? So let's get these brats taken care of. We'll hire some cops to do it. No, they don't have the credentials for it. They might not even know math, but they can teach 6th grade math. Why not? Why not? As long as we provide some form of daycare so employers can, get their employees back to work. To me, that's what this is about. Because if it was really about ensuring quality education for the kids, you wouldn't have people who are not qualified for the job filling the role of teachers during a teacher shortage.
You could import teachers from another part of the country that's not experiencing a horrific rise in COVID. Well, actually, that's none actually.
Yeah.
No. Look, you're sort of, I guess, joking. It's daycare or whatever. But yeah, like I'm going to guess that the Republican governor of Oklahoma probably doesn't stay up late at night wondering if elementary school students are getting a good enough education.
Yeah.
Probably not. So just throw the cops in there or whatever. And if the cops get COVID or if the cops spread COVID, whatever, because I think you have at least you have the pragmatic business side of this covered. The other half is he is a Republican, and so he has to be in favor of in-person teaching because they have decided that is now a part of our political identity. Why? I don't know. Does it have anything to do with conservatism?
No.
Gun rights? I don't know. It just they decided, and Tucker Carlson did some monologues, and so now every single Republican elected official has to be in support of it, regardless of the COVID situation in their state, regardless of the percentage of school personnel that are available to work. They just have to do it because if they don't, they'll get attacked.
So honestly, I really think it's because they want to support business interests and they want to get everyone back to work. I really think that's what's driving this. And yeah, maybe they've also decided to lean into this as a culture war issue, possibly, but my point is it has nothing to do with what serves the best interests of students.
Yeah.
How can we ensure that they're getting the best education possible despite the fact that we're still dealing with this pandemic? And remember, we're talking about Oklahoma here, where there is a huge population of people who have not been vaccinated. If you have been vaccinated, if you have been boosted, as we've said on this show before, I don't want people to panic about Omicron. Obviously, still be responsible, mask, social distance, and all of that. But if you're not vaccinated, you do have something to be concerned about. And Oklahoma tends to be one of the states that has lower vaccination rates. And before I get to those data points, I want to point out the qualifications that these cops and others need to have before filling the role of teachers.
Master's degree? Or?
No, none of that. No, not even that. So Secretary of Education Ryan Walters said all additional persons paired with public schools will be required to pass standard background checks. Nice. Avoid inappropriate conduct with students. Okay, that's good. And follow state and local laws and rules. There are clear expectations of what is expected from a sub and how they will behave, Walters said. What about their ability to teach? What about that? Like, does that matter at all?
I don't think there's any expectation that they will be teaching anything. I don't think that there generally is for most subs. I think subs do an important job, but then they have for literally decades. But I don't think, like, so here they're bringing in cops. In Texas, they're literally asking parents to come in and sub. I don't think they expect anything is going to be taught there. I think it's just.
I want to make a correction. So I guess it depends on the school district, but there was a brief period of time where I was having a career crisis. And I was like, I could do substitute teaching until I figure out my life. And you have to go through like a testing process. You have to have certain qualifications.
Yeah, but these aren't people who are working in an ongoing way as subs. These are people clearly filling a vacancy due to pandemic, like the parents that are being tapped in Texas. And I don't like either of those solutions. But the solutions bother me less than the fact that we're in this situation at all, coupled with an unwillingness to even admit that this is yet another massive failure. So the Republican governor of Oklahoma is not saying, okay guys, we gotta get somebody, like maybe it's the cops, maybe it's the post office people who serve in some leadership position, please help us because we're desperate because everybody's got COVID, we should have taken it more seriously. They're not saying that, they're like, hey, this is awesome, let's get some cops in there, don't get vaccinated. That is the thing that bothers me the most. We do not need to be in this situation, but you won't get vaccinated. You won't take it seriously. You're coughing in each other's mouths and you have been for a year and a half. And there has been no increase in understanding since the very beginning of this thing.
And just to really reinforce John's point here, why don't we go to the final graphic, which shows you what the COVID cases look like in Oklahoma specifically. So if you look at the graph, you see this sharp incline at the very end, thanks to the Omicron variant. And as I've mentioned before, Oklahoma is one of the states that has the lowest vaccination rates. And that leads to the problem that they're experiencing to begin with the teacher shortages and schools having to shut down for in-person learning. There was a better way to handle all of this. And the very people who bitch and moan about teachers not wanting to show up for in-person learning are the very ones who created an unsafe environment that they don't want to be part of to begin with. So I think that's a really good point, John. I completely agree with you on that. And I feel bad for the people who are caught in the middle, the students who deserve a quality education. They deserve more than just being thrown into some building that's masquerading as education when really it's nothing more than daycare. It's pathetic.
Yeah, and it's serving mainly as a chickenpox party right now, basically.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.